Hello and welcome to yet.
We do not care.
I think definitely communication was one of my biggest strengths as a pro player. Communication should always reflect the current situation you're in. Let's say I am T now and I'm walking with my buddies, we're walking up B, and then my friend walks around the corner and I get shot in the back now. If I tell him someone is behind, no one is going to make a mental note of this. But if I instead say, he's behind, then everyone is going to understand that this is crucial information, right? But also another example of communication reflecting the current situation is if, for example, let's say we go in peak heaven, we get 2 kills, whatever. Now we have double man advantage, which allows us to communicate less. Just take the example where the T's are 5 alive and my team is playing CT. There's a T peeking elbow and a T peeking A main and a T peeking whatever cave and a T peeking heaven and a T peeking B ramp. All 5 players are potentially getting contact at the same time, and all are going to flood the comms, and all are going to be very stressed, right? But if we have double man advantage, and let's say we're in a 5 versus 3 situation, this scenario can never happen because there can maximum be 3 people pressuring us at the same time. If you have an advantage, there won't be as many things to communicate about, and so you can relax a little. All teams that I've ever played in, this is kind of a communication life hack, but all teams that I've played in basically have had a keyword for this exact scenario. The cave player says in one word when they can cross this, okay? So my team, for example, has the keyword apple. So if our cave player says apple, it means that the T's can cross cave and go heaven, or they can already be across cave. There was this Danish IGL back in the day. His name was Neon. He was kind of famous, or we can even call it infamous, in the Danish scene for, being a very strict and, let's call it, specific in-game leader. And on DOS 2, for example, he would have it that all tactics were named after fruit. So you would have apple, whatever, banana, pear, like so on and so on. And then on another map, I think it was in Further or something like that, it was all men's cologne. So it was like Armani, Diesel, blah, blah, blah. So each map had its own category. That kind of does sound nice, but at the same time, it isn't really that nice because you would literally get a situation. I mean, I played with him as well. You could have a situation where you ask, what is kiwi? And then he would say, it's apple without smokes. And then you're sitting there thinking like, okay, but this doesn't help me. Whereas I had another in-game leader, he had the opinion that to make communication simple, you would want to give a tactic the name that it is. So in my team, for example, when we want to A-pop, we say, let's do the A-pop. When we want to do B execution, we call it, let's do B exec. Is there such a thing as communicating too much? My opinion on that is that, there will always be such a thing as too much communication. You can only communicate too much if what you're saying isn't valuable. If I'm next to my teammate and I see him peeking B, I can say, I'm with you. And it's his job to be able to play while I'm talking to him. But if I'm telling him, I'm next to you on B, and then I start saying, I actually had yogurt with banana for breakfast. That's not valuable information, and then that goes into the too much communication. It's to the point where I'm just talking to talk. When you're dead, telling someone what to do, even if you're right, it's typically not a good move. Rather propose it as an idea like, maybe you have timing, let the person who you're spectating make their own choice. But other than that, my personal opinion, there is no such thing. I've never complained about a teammate communicating too much, but I've complained about a million teammates communicating too little. When I was playing in the team Nordaven, I had already been professional in Counter-Strike for a couple of years. And at some point, the player HS, like the Estonian, he told me like, sometimes when you communicate, you make things way more complicated than they need to be. There are some players who believe that Counter-Strike should be 100% assertive. Because if I am an AWP player, for example, people will actually go so into detail with you that if you say, I think I want to peek long, that's not good enough. People will tell you, you have to say, I'm peeking long. And the difference there is just in one of them, you're questioning kind of if you should or shouldn't. And the other one, you sound confident. And when you sound confident, that also spreads to your teammates, right? I would much rather play with an AWP player where he seems like he knows what he's doing, like he or she, basically. I think there is a lot of power in communicating as well, more openly. If I have a spawn towards B on DOS 2, maybe I know I want to peek B, but I want to know if it's a good idea or not. And it can be worth it for me in this case to not be assertive and instead ask my B player, hey, B player, do you think it could be good for me to peek B now? And then by asking that question, the B player will give me this, what I call service info. It's basically like info about your area, right? And this kind of service info, what it gives you is, if the B player knows that they don't do Molotov, they always insta-smoke B. There's literally zero reason for me to start B because I won't find anything. I mean, when I joined Heroic, I was starting as AWP, and then at some point I was playing Rifle, and I became a B player, and I was playing with BlameF. And he loved playing out in the sandbags area. I guess that was pretty meta at the time. And so almost every round, I was starting with a flash held up in his back. As you can imagine on Inferno, when teams want to take top banana, if they do Molotov and nade, sandbags, whatever, there is no time for BlameF in this scenario to call my flash. So it was way more down to my own read, and what was difficult about that was I couldn't see what was going on. I could only hear what was going on, right? Because I was standing like this. There were times where I wasted a flash by flashing when I thought they were pushing him. There were also times where I should have flashed and I didn't. I'll share with you this Sprout thing that I learned, where I specifically remember Speedy, who I was playing with at the time, told me in some round in practice or something, we trust you. What you want to do, you don't need to explain it, you just need to do it. And that also cut out a lot of communication, that there is actually a real power to give strats names that you don't even have in your own playbook. For example, the idea of eyeballers is you get a deep CT smoke, and then you also have a side smoke. And what that does for you is you can, rush down the CT player, and you can go around and play the B side from ruins and from pool. Because I've seen the strat before, even though I've never seen it in CS2 before that moment, I had a name for it, which was eyeballers, right? And that also means that if I am a CT, even if I don't have this strat in my playbook, knowing what the strat is called, or at least having an agreed upon name with my team, is actually worth it. Because then, if we're playing on B, even though we will never ourselves call this round, if people understand what we mean when we say eyeballers, people understand, they can make the mental image as they are coming over. Let's say I'm long player, I'm rotating over, and they say, they're doing eyeballers. Then I know as I'm coming over here, okay, there's a deep CT smoke. I should probably break it. Maybe I can get killed on the people running ruins. So I think that's something I've never heard anyone talk about before. And I think it's actually something that is important. Eternal Fire have made a new strat where they have, left side smoke. They also have the lurk smoke. So it's kind of looking the exact same. But then they also have deep con smoke. This was a tactic that they used a few times at Katowice. So this was something that was very, in my opinion, specific to their identity. It was a strat probably no other team would run. If you ever do preparation on an opponent, or if you've played them before and they have some specific call, you don't have a word for it because there's no other team in the world basically that runs it. You can just use the call out like they are doing signature. And then everyone understands from the preparation, okay, these three smokes, we're playing against Eternal Fire. When this happens, we call out, they're doing signature. And it's again a way to shorten the communication, right? Instead of saying, they did lurk smoke, and they did left side smoke, and they did con smoke. Just say they're doing signature. And then everyone is on the same page. If it hasn't been clear enough, signature then changes for each team. Then if we next day play Heroic, maybe they have a specific mid-take to A-split rush. If we see those nades, we say they are doing signature. And then everyone understands what's going on. I think maybe I've touched on the concept of red, yellow, green flashes. Let's say I am standing here, ready to peek. If my guy throws the window flash, right? This window flash is landing in my back. And this is what I would consider a green flash. A green flash is just a flash that lands behind your teammate. A flash that can never blind your teammate. This flash can never blind me if I'm standing here. It's impossible. Then there is yellow flash. I would use yellow. Some people, I think, use blue. Yellow flash would be something like, let's say I'm standing here and my teammate is doing this flash. And here it's a little bit more difficult for me to understand, okay, does my teammate get blind by this? Because if he's standing here, then not. But maybe if he's standing at the back wall, maybe he will, right? So a yellow flash is just a flash where you don't really know if it's in front or not. And then a red flash is in front. So if I would be standing here, I would say, okay, I'm flashing. It's a red flash. And then if I'm peeking from here instead, then I know, okay, the flash lands in front of me. I will touch actually on one more thing that came up in my mind with communication, which I think is probably the most important part of communication. And I peeked mid and I saw there's no one here. And I rotate over to connector, whatever, this area. And then I'm holding top mid while my other teammate is holding underground. If I choose to leave my teammate, I always have to, say that I'm leaving this area. But also, if your information is for one person in particular, always mention them by name. Instead of saying, I'm leaving con, say, Debo, I'm leaving con, you're playing alone. Or the same way, if I have a B player called Billy Bob, when I'm leaving con, I'll be like, name, I'm leaving you con, you're playing alone, and then, Billy Bob, I'm coming B now. And then my homie Billy Bob over on the B side, who's got knee problems from all the jumping, he will hear that information extra carefully, because normally a B player is maybe not listening so much to what's going on A or what the orb is communicating, whatever. But if I mention him by name, he will pay attention to me. I am expecting that the person who is receiving my information gives me some indication that they have received the information. Otherwise, I will tell them the information again. So if I am saying, Billy Bob, I'm coming B now, so let's push B. If Billy Bob doesn't say anything, I am assuming he hasn't heard what I said. But if I'm coming over to B and I'm saying these things, and Billy Bob immediately says, yeah, then he's confirming he has received that information. And so many people, especially in FACEIT, don't understand that concept. Like, when someone is talking to you, or even to the team, confirm that you've heard it. So just always confirm. Counter-Strike is a conversation. The same way you wouldn't be rude in a conversation. Someone's talking to you and you just ignore them. Don't ignore people in Counter-Strike. One last thing as well. I have had this in the past where I am in a position. Let's say I'm close slope, and I ask my con player, can you flash ramp for me? And then sometimes the con player will say, yes. So they do the good job of confirming it, and then they will immediately flash slope. And my intention of my question was actually not to ask, can you flash for me now? My intention was, can you flash for me at all? I'm expecting them to say yes. When they say yes, then I as the slope player say, okay, I want it in 5 seconds. I think that's also a point where you can definitely be assertive. Say I am default, and they're coming out slope, and I don't have time to say, hey, can someone flash for me? And then they have to say yes, and then I say, okay, do it now. Then you can just be assertive and you can say, flash for me A, and then people know, okay, this needs to happen ASAP. This will be the absolute last thing I say as well, because this is also one of the most common communication mistakes. I'm asking them to flash, and then they just do it, and they don't say anything. This, I think we can all agree on, is very bad. But I've also had teammates where I say, flash for me A, and then they say, I'm flashing. It's very different if you say, I am flashing, or if you say, I'm flashing now. Because it's important for your teammate who needs to peek with the flash to have emphasis on the moment when you throw the flash. Instead of saying, I'm flashing, you can also just say, flash, or you can say, I'm flashing now. Anything where there is an indication of the moment where you release the flash, because that is very important. I've always had the mindset that you should work on your mechanics just as much as you work on all the other things related to Counter-Strike, like your personality, your communication, your work ethic. Pay attention to your communication. See if there's something you could say better. That's my best advice. And just reflect on what's happening.